meeting a year that is my pleasure to call to order, since we're going to be conducting elections for the position of Chair and Vice Chair of the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. And the first item of business we have on the table is a motion just with respect to us conducting this meeting in a virtual format due to the current restrictions of meeting in person. So I just need a mover and seconder, please. Do I have a mover?
Move.
Okay, I see Director Adamson and Adamo, and all in favor? All opposed? And motion carries. Okay, so the first item of business that we have tonight is the election of Chair of the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission. So to facilitate this election, I'd like to ask for the first time a nomination for the position of Chair of the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission.
I'd like to nominate Director Raymond.
Okay, Director Raymond, do you accept that nomination?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Now for a second time, I'll call for the position or for nominations for the position of Chair of the Commission. Is there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate, so this is Bronwyn. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Adamo.
Okay. And Mr. Adamo, do you let your name stand for the position of Chair of the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission?
Well, I appreciate that, Bronwyn. Thank you very much. I think Terry's done a wonderful job over the past my past run, so I'll pass on that opportunity. Perhaps I'll move on to the second one.
Okay. And for a third time, I'll call for any nominations for the position of Chair of the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission. Okay, hearing none, I declare Director Terry Raymond as Chair of the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to conduct the election of Vice Chair. Can I go ahead and do that? Okay, excellent. Okay, so I'd like to call for the nominations or for a nomination for the position of Vice Chair of the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Adamo for Vice Chair.
Okay. And Commissioner Adamo, do you accept that nomination?
I do accept that. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay. So for a second time, I'll call for nominations for the position of Vice Chair. And for a third and final time, nomination for any for the position of Vice Chair of the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission. Okay, hearing none, I declare Commissioner Adamo elected as the Vice Chair of the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, if you'd like to pick up with the agenda at item 4.
Okay, I would look for approval of agenda and addenda and any late items. Motion is there. Do I have a mover? Do I have a mover?
Also move, Punch.
Thank you. Seconder?
I do.
Thank you. Any objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. I believe we have a delegation presentation by the River Monsters Swim Club. The presentation by Catherine Freemark, who is the president of the swim club, regarding the 2020 swim club activities and plans for 2021 swim meet. Ms. Freemark.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, everyone. On the meeting tonight, we also have John Polishak, who's also on our executive board for River Monsters. I'd like to thank everybody for their time this evening, and I have a little bit of a video presentation to share of our activities. I'm going to say events, but activities of the last year. I'm going to just see if I can share that now with you. Sorry, it's a bit of a technical. Do this first. No.
It always works till the minute you want to use it.
Yeah, well, I'm using Keynote. There we go. Play. Okay, so yeah, the River Monster Swim Club for our last year, our 2021 season. So during the pandemic, obviously there's been serious physical and mental health issues that have been associated with it. I'll let you take a second to read. Particularly for young children, they've been very hard hit. They have suffered a loss of social connection. Lots of children are learning from home. They're restricted on play dates and gatherings. There's no birthday parties, there's no sleepovers. And then in addition, things that people don't think about is during these times, the youth also have a loss of community ties and pride. The River Monsters typically participate in a lot of community events, not just the swim meet per se, but the parade and fundraisers, parade in Sunshine Valley, and all of those things have obviously been affected, which impacts them as well. Unfortunately, the pandemic has created, the COVID-10, or now the COVID-20, the unhealthy weight gain, unhealthy eating habits, unhealthy exercise habits, increased use of electronics, which leads to mobility, physical and psychological issues. Using electronics for a long time, it's been proven that that affects children's, mental and physical capabilities. The benefits of being a river monster during the pandemic has been some sense of normality. A lot of kids where their world's been turned upside down, being able to continue to be a river monster has that sense of normality, and they're able to keep being part of the club. They're able to continue in their chosen sport. They receive physical exercise, increased endorphins, which help create mental wellness, social interaction, goal setting, community ties and pride, ability to keep moving forward and plan for the future. And we do hire, we had last summer 4 youth that we hired and kept working during the pandemic. So what we did during Winter Fit, it was pre-COVID. From January to March, we were still able to operate our full programs with 4 programs for ages youth 4 to 17 years old with 45 participants. It follows the Canadian Sport Fundamental Model, which is getting the kids young and helping that mobility as they age and learn more about their sport. Head coach Mike Freimark was named BC's Community Sport of the Year for 2019, which was awarded in March of 2020 or 2020. Throughout this Mike's Award, we had Christmas events, and the kids were able to conduct just a normal program. And then unfortunately, COVID hit and kind of threw everything into flux. We had planned for a complete full season, but unfortunately that did not happen. Our plans were ready to go by the end of May. Our return to swim plans based on BC Life Saving Society and provincial health orders. We did not cancel immediately the River Monster Swim Meet. We held off actually until August, hoping that some form of competition would be able to be held. We received the Canada Summer Jobs Grant, in which we kept 4 youth employed. And what they did was we had plans ready and in place. BC Summer Swim conducted from April 1st, a virtual session, which was daily during the week. We ran from June until August, a twice weekly virtual session for 45 minutes. And what we did in the 45-minute video sessions with the children was had segments for keeping them active and exercise during that time. And then we had the swim fun games and incorporated team games as well, just to keep the team together and to give the kids something to look forward to and have some fun. And a small teaching model as well. We spent about 10-15 minutes talking about things like goal setting and healthy snacks, so that it was an all-around program. The facilities closed, and unfortunately we did not know when they were going to be opening. So we had plans in place to resume with 2 coaches working on the safety plan and working on practice plans for the entire year. Then unfortunately, a lot of the swimmers ended up going to Agassiz. Agassiz was able to open their rec center and their outdoor pool in June. So a significant number of the River Monster swimmers actually went and swam for the Agassiz Club last summer. July 1st, we completed further guidelines. On August 29th, we were able to receive approval from the facility to actually have a practice at the North Bend pool in Boston Bar. So that was a lot of fun for the kids to actually be able to get in the water as a team again. And we received our first Canadian community gaming grant, which is a huge achievement for us and will help us plan for this coming season. So as you can see, there's a picture of the kids out at Boston Bar, some of the kids are swimming in Agassiz, and the fun games that we completed, like design your own swim cap. As you can see, Violet, my daughter, did a COVID social gathering swim cap that she designed. And then Winter Fit One was planned for September to December. We arranged a meeting with several experts from different boards, BC Life Saving Society, consulting group that did plans for the city of Vancouver and Langley, kinesiologists and aquatic safety trainers, our Fraser Valley BCSSA president and director, and sat with the facility and discussed return to swim plans for the Dan Sherers Aquatic Center. Swimming began in September and ended in December with 21 swimmers. We trained in small training groups or cohorts, or they call training nodes, again, keeping families together based on that more so than based on ability. We received an FERD grant for the container that you see in the picture. That's our own lockable storage unit. So coaches have sets of keys to that. Our equipment is locked inside there, including all of our COVID supplies and safety plans. Unfortunately, one of our River Monsters Swim Club coaches did test positive at the end of mid-November, but because our plan was excellent and our coaches are very well trained, as soon as he had the slightest sore throat, he notified us immediately as per our programming, our plans, and Fraser Health deemed that the swim club was not at a risk at all because of his quick action. So it wasn't necessary to shut down the swim program at all. And then we just started today. We all just rushed back from swim club. I got home 5 minutes ago. And we're doing smaller sets now, just in case, facility plans or pandemic plans change. So they're 2 4-week sessions with kids that are in the water. We have 19 participants set for this first group from today until February 11th. And then the next registration will open from February 5th. Unfortunately, we're only open right now, allowing people to register that have participated in a competitive swim program before, and no swimmers under 6 years old. And this is due to the inability of coaches to actually physically manipulate or get in the water with the swimmers. And we have had a very successful junior coaching program before, where we have they're training, mentoring up young swimmers to eventually become coaches and lifeguards. Unfortunately, they're not able to get in the water with swimmers that are in the same training node. And then planning for summer this year, on January 23rd, there is a BC Summer Swim return to competitive swim webinar, in which they will be pulling people from the entire province and experts in the community to see how they can develop swim meets and the season for the coming year. And again, how we will be advised to set up our return to swim plans for summer. We did send booking information to the facility to request our spots for summer. Unfortunately, we'll be tweaking that a little bit more. We're hoping that we can run some shorter programs like the Mini Monsters or the New to Swim maybe with a parent and in the water with the swimmers in order to get new swimmers. Because the problem we foresee is that we have swimmers that have been swimming for a couple of years that are excellent, bringing home 9 provincial medals in 2019. And we have young swimmers and people that are interested in the club. Every day I'm seeing increased number of views on Facebook with people actually coming to the site, wanting information and wanting to know when they can join. But at this time, it's not, the type of program that we're able to run is not preferable with the space that we have in the water and the way the coaches have to interact with the swimmers. So hoping that as we run into stage 3 and 4 and develop different ideas on how we can get these new swimmers. Otherwise, we're going to have a big group, a lag in between. And then we've also asked for once a month outdoor practices in North Bend, just in case indoor facilities become an issue again. And it was actually having to go up North Bend. It was a great facility. We had a lot of fun. And then, of course, there's the Hope Invitational Swim Meet. This year it's planned for June 12th and 13th. And we would actually like to ask the Rec Commission again if they would assist us to cover the facility costs. Obviously, our numbers are down again this year, which is unfortunate. A lot of other clubs are able to run with higher numbers. For example, even through the pandemic last year, Agassiz had 92 swimmers registered for summer, starting from June 15th in the water until August 29th. So it's obviously, it can be run. During that time with Agassiz, there was 0 COVID direct contact or exposure to any of the swimmers. May I ask, is there any questions?
I'll have a couple of questions, Catherine. The age group difference, like what is the youngest to the oldest, and how many current active members do you have?
So current swimmers that started today in the water for the 4 weeks is 19. The oldest of this set is 6, and the oldest is 13.
As old as 13.
Yeah.
And what would you have had pre-COVID for that?
Last year at the same time we had 45. Yeah, with the youngest being 4 and the oldest being 18.
And do you anticipate there a potential to increase your numbers if you're able to go through with your current program the way you've established it?
If we're able to receive facility full time and work with the facility in order to have maybe some of these different types of programs. For example, some of the clubs up, Chilliwack right now is back in the water. They've just started a parent and youth swim. So it's not all little swimmers. Some of them are a little bit older. And they did it from September to December. They only had 4 spots available. All 4 spots were full. So in January, just next week, they're starting. They've opened up 9 spots for 9 weeks and they're full. So they're looking to increase their time. So these types of different programs that we haven't run previously that would introduce families to swim would be beneficial.
And then there's Terry's clocks. And there's my last question is pretty simple, really. Or no, I just forgot. I wrote it down and then I've messed it up. Well, what's the difference between the Agassiz facility and Dan Scher's pool in terms of how they're able to operate under the same Fraser Health guidelines?
It just, I believe the way the municipality and the facility rolled out their plan. Obviously, of course, it is an outdoor pool as well.
Okay.
Could be a factor, and ours is an indoor pool. Yeah. Okay. Each facility uses slightly different regulations based on the same guidelines, but it's how they interpret them as well.
Thanks very much.
Any other questions?
Chair Raymond,
Yes.
through you to staff, please. I'd be interested to know what the costs are involved that we're giving up for the swim club. I'm not opposed to it. I was just wanting to know when other groups put proposals forward. I like kind of a benchmark of what we've given up.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question if that's helpful.
Yes, please do.
Good afternoon. And Catherine has so eloquently talked about the swim club program. It's a huge part of what happens in the pool at the recreation center. So the request for 2021 currently is just around $5,000 of total swim costs for facility rentals, etc. We have put these rentals in as tentative because obviously, and we'd like to facilitate and go through with them. But as the health order stands right now, it's unclear as to whether or not we will be able to go forward with them. However, we need to plan for these things moving ahead and be able to adjust to the health orders as they come up and try to get things moving. And the pool is one of the areas where it seems to be more successful in moving forward. So the current request is a $5,090.42. In an annual budget span, we have around $8,000 that we put aside in the budget for community use. And my understanding of that is typically it's approved up to around $2,500 per group, but that's for discussion that we would need to have moving forward.
Okay, thank you, staff. I do support the swim meet. I think it's important for the children as well as our community. They do bring many families and they spend money in our community, so that's a good thing. And I was just curious, Catherine, if you wouldn't mind as well, what's your drop dead date for if the COVID plans continue? When would you have to notify everyone that you're going to cancel the meet? Have you got something in mind? Do you need 30 days notice to your participants, or what do you do there?
No, it can be last minute. So again, like last year, we just kept telling the facility we were moving it back and didn't have a specific date. And again, the clubs and teams are just ready to go. We have the meet built. Typically we need 4 weeks prior to set up the build, but the kids register for the meet the week before. And in 2019, we had 305 participants come to Hope. Last year, we were supposed to have not only all 9 clubs within the region, but we were also expecting Merritt, Kelowna, Delta, Richmond, and Nanaimo.
Thank you. The Fraser Health modeling keeps changing, so they're just guessing. They have no idea. So I think if you have a plan in place, you'll be fine.
Adamson.
Thank
Yes,
you, Chair
sir.
Raymond.
Commissioner Adams? Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to know how much money you figure, I can't remember the figure. I know you told us before. With that 305 people coming for the swim meet, how much money did that work out to for Hope and restaurants, rooms and all that?
There's no exact figures, but what they estimate is that on average, at least 4 family members attend for each swimmer. So then you're looking at an average of, between 1,000 to 2,000 people extra coming into Hope for that weekend. And then you can estimate that most families spend at least $200 here. So even at that, you're looking at over on a low side, approximately $6,000 to $10,000 for families coming in and spending additional dollars in Hope. And that's not including the families that are staying over in hotels and camping.
That's wonderful. So it's a good return for our investment. That's all I'm saying. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Chair Raymond, yes, please. So I had one question related to regarding the camping situation last year where you would be requesting from the District of Hope permission to have camping in the back of the facility and things like that. Is that possible to do that within the COVID regulations? And is that, I guess that's my question really, is that possible?
At this time, we were coming to the Rec Commission first to see, obviously with reduced numbers and increased potential facility costs, it'll be dependent on what our budget is. So we will sit down with the District of Hope as well, and then discuss with them what their needs would be and requirements for allowing camping to happen.
Thank you.
It was mentioned last year that with the pipeline as well, that it might be an issue and we should book early, being the pandemic protocols right now, obviously has changed everything.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll be discussing this a little further and we'll let you know the outcome just as soon as we can.
We would also like to do one more thing. We would really like to better the relationship between the facility and the swim club with regards to communication. Oh
yes, I did see that. I was going to mention that, and I'll have a talk with our staff after and just see, and maybe with you, and see what's going on there.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you want. But...
Can I be honest? I'd like to go get dinner.
Okay,
swim started today. I rushed home from work and then rushed down to swim. Got everybody in the water, made sure everything was good to go. I got home at 6:20 and luckily got the computer working. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, everyone. Please feel free to email us any questions, or if there's anything else you need from us, please just let us know.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, on to item 6, minutes and matters arising, draft Recreation, Culture and Airpark Services Commission meeting minutes of December 1st, 2020. A motion that the minutes be, that the minutes of the Recreation, Culture and Airpark Services Commission open meeting held December 1st, 2020 be adopted. Do you have a mover? Commissioner Admiral? Seconder? Hello? A seconder?
Rob.
Commissioner Rob? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Under new business, 7.1 is a 2021-2025 financial plan presentation by Kelly Lounsborough. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chair Raymond, and good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. So thank you for your time today. We are here again since our meeting in December, where we came to you with a preliminary view of our financial plan for 2021 to 2025. We're just bear with us a moment. Christy Hodson's our Manager of Financial Operations. She's also here at the meeting and is sharing the slides. So we're tag teaming here. Thank you, Christy.
If I may, can the
Please.
Commissioner can jump in at any time with a question?
Absolutely, please. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, Christy, if you don't mind going to the next slide, please. All right, so this is largely the same presentation we have given in December. There are a few updates and refreshes, so we'll walk you through it. We've also provided a report for the Commission to review in advance. So this evening, we'd like to go over the budget overview of the process. We'll talk about the risks, We'll cover off the financial summary of the 4 service areas that we're talking about, and then I'll pass over the floor to my colleagues to go through each individual service area budget. And today we will be looking for a motion to make a recommendation of these budgets to the Fraser Valley Regional District Board. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So the budget direction for this plan, for this financial plan, was conservative, austerity. We are in a global pandemic and don't know what to expect. So we have not included a lot of new expansion and or new services. We have taken the approach to look at what is needed and not what was done before. Look for efficiencies, refocus dollars on the line items that are more of a priority, evaluate forecasts, and all to determine what is really required. This financial plan does not include any new full-time staff positions. And there may be projects, though, that require temporary resources, but we are committed to keeping the budget lean. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so risks are important to consider in the development of a financial plan. What can the budget tolerate? We know there are financial risks, such as low interest rates, lower than expected revenues, and higher costs in some cases. Staffing risks in a global pandemic make us consider what is possible and really what is possible to achieve, and focus us on our business continuity. While we were preparing the budget, we had an unfortunate timing where we had a few absences within the finance department, all unexpected, and there are only a couple of us left to prepare the budget for a couple of weeks there. It was quite lean. And so, especially with the global pandemic, we just don't know what to expect. So when we went through the budget development process, we asked the budget owners to really consider what is required to maintain our infrastructure, which is our assets, in a state of good repair, and to evaluate the level of surplus and reserves balances that we have available for these purposes, so that we see that we have a lot of work to do in these areas. And we'll be focusing on that in the next coming year, on looking at our asset management plan and our policies for the reserve funds that we have. So while our budget direction was conservative, there are some budgets that do have an increase, not necessarily these 4, but in terms of the overall Fraser Valley Regional District, we did just a note more of interest. There were some budgets that increased more than inflation, and that was really due to the necessity to make sure that we're financially sustainable, that we have those balances in place should there be future needs, so that we don't have dramatic spikes in taxation in later years to catch up, if you will. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, since we met in December, you may have noticed some changes to the financial summary. So we had another opportunity to review these budgets for these 4 service areas. And I may have alluded to it in our meeting in December. We had just been in receipt of COVID relief funding from the provincial government. Now, this funding for the Fraser Valley Regional District was $1.362 million. And it is intended to cover off unexpected financial burdens related to COVID-19. So where there's revenue shortfalls as a result of COVID, where there's unexpected expenses such as needing to have installed plexiglass, we didn't have those things budgeted. So this is a nice injection of funds from the provincial government. We do have reporting requirements, and there are eligibility criteria, if you will, as I've explained. So this new summary takes into account COVID relief funding, where we have injected some funds into some service area budgets, which I'll cover off in a moment. So I'll cover out. So of the $1.362 million, the Fraser Valley Regional District has allocated just over $800,000 of that, with just over $550,000 remaining to be allocated. We've saved some money. We've set it aside. We have a plan for it, but we have to report annually to the provincial government, and we're not out at the global pandemic yet. So throughout this year, we'll be continuing to look at whether or not there's an unexpected cost, or if there's any financial burdens placed on service areas, including revenue shortfalls. So in terms of the changes to the budgets, so you'll see the Hope Airport, there have been no changes to that service area budget. The 709 Hope Arena and Pool, that the tax increase on that one had been $53,630. So what we did was that one we did not inject COVID funding to. So there were revenue shortfalls, but we actually had savings in expenses. So we couldn't necessarily go in and inject revenues where we knew we had financial savings as a result of COVID-19. But we did take another look at the tax requisition and looked at the surplus and surplus balance that we had in place. And we decided to reduce the tax requisition by $25,000. And we drew out more of the surplus. We felt that that was still sustainable, and we know what kind of year we're in. We know it's a financially difficult year, so we did that and feel confident that the budget's not going to be jeopardized going forward. Because what I'm alluding to is if you drop down decrease the tax requisition one year, you don't want to have an unintended consequence of increasing it more the next year to catch up. But we felt that we can safely do that for the Hope Arena and Pool budget. Now, for the Hope Recreation budget, that wasn't a positive. We were increasing the budget and we did decrease it. So we did a bit of a match. We did inject COVID funding. We applied COVID funding, just over $10,000. And when we looked at the revenues and expenses, we took a close look and we felt that that budget did suffer as a result of the global pandemic. And then we looked at the surplus balance we had available, and we drew down, we did a bit of a match, if you will. So just almost $10,000 of surplus, almost $9,700 of surplus we applied to that budget, and we were able to decrease that tax increase. So it's now a tax decrease. So hopefully that helps alleviate any increases in tax pain, if you will, for the taxpayer. Now the Almer Carlson Pool, we do show a modest increase of $830 over last year. Now that one we did apply COVID relief funding to. There are a couple of things happened here. We applied COVID relief funding just over $17,000. We applied COVID relief funding. But when we looked at the future of tax increases and the surplus balances, we only decreased the tax requisition by $1,500. That rest of that COVID funding will go to the surplus. So it still stays with that budget, but we just didn't make a harsh decrease on the tax requisition. I think that would have unintended consequences going forward. So we did decrease it somewhat. And the total of the financial summary for these 4 service areas is just almost $34,000 of an increase over last year. So compared to that figure had been, actually I don't have that at top of hand, what it was been before, but we had a higher increase last time around. Are there any questions before I move to the next slide?
Yes, Adamson.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Okay, this covert money that you put into the budget, Area B usually pays about 30%, I think, of the budget. And so this covert money came to the regional district. So any money you put in this, is Hope putting their share in as well? That's my question.
Is the District of Hope putting in funds? Is that what your
yeah,
question
that's my
is?
question. Yeah.
Not directly. Right now, we're applying COVID funding here. We haven't had that conversation with the District of Hope on that.
Because may I? Am I on?
Yes, keep going. Carry on, Dennis. Oh, maybe we lost him.
I'll just check and see if he's, let's see here. Oh, so Director Adamson, you've got yourself muted.
Yeah, I know. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. No, I'm grateful for the money from the federal government to help make up some of our losses. But in a shared service contract, if one partner is putting in money, the other partner should be putting in money as well to the same, like they should put in 70% and we should put in 70%, 30%, I should say. And I just want that to happen like that. Thanks.
comments?
Yes, through the chair to Director Adamson. This budget is for, you're referring to the Hope Recreation budget of the reference number 710. Is that correct?
I'm talking about where you just said you put $10,000 in
Yes.
of a covert relief fund line budget, right?
Right. So this is a service that's provided by the FVRD. We don't, this complete budget with the 184,000 in tax requisition does not contain any other funding from the District of Hope for these services.
That's my point. That's my point exactly. That
Right.
I get billed once a year for all the services.
Okay.
So my requisition coming up will be what, Kelly, 1.6 mil? No, you're going to cover it off later in the presentation.
Yeah, my point is, if Area B, the regional district got money for the covert. If Area B is putting regional money that we got into this, is Hope going to put their fair share in? That's all I want to know.
So this COVID funding, while there's two separate things that are occurring here. The COVID funding, there was a funding formula that was allocated based on electoral areas and member municipalities based on population. But so that was what the provincial government used in determining that amount that the regional district gets. So that's one part in how that dollars were allocated. Now then it's up to the regional district to apply it to areas under the eligibility requirements of the government for revenue shortfalls as a result of COVID, increased expenses as a result of COVID. So I think we're mixing up the issues here. We don't have funding coming in this budget line item from the District of Hope. So us applying the COVID funding, I think it's a separate issue.
Well, I disagree. I would think that if we're putting, say, $10,000 in, and it's coming from the Fraser Valley Regional District money, then Hope should put in, if 10,000 is 30%, then Hope should make up 70% on the other side, which probably be about 20-some thousand they should put in on this to even it out. So it's not a double dip on covert money for Hope. Think about it.
Yeah, perhaps we can talk further offline. Yeah, about the COVID funding formulas. I'm happy to do that.
And just so that you're aware, there is a movement province-wide right now investigating into how that COVID money that went to regional districts is being allocated.
Thank you, Director Raymond. Yes, I'm aware.
Any other questions? Seeing none, carry on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next slide, please. So this is the residential impact. This is the impact to residential property owners. Now, this slide, this is based on assessment data we received in November from BC Assessment. It's a little bit of a different approach than you've seen in prior years. In prior years, when estimates are calculated, they're just calculated on a percentage increase. We have applied the exact assessment information that we received on a line by line basis. We received from BC Assessment in November. The BC Assessment information does get updated in January, and what we will tax on is the completed roll information that comes out in March. So all of these are approximate and they're estimates, but they're based on the requisition dollars, and those requisition dollars that you see in the left-hand column, they won't change. Those are what's in the proposed budget. The rest of it is all are all estimates, but what I'm trying to say is I think they're very solid estimates because they're based on real data that we received from BC Assessment. So these numbers have been revised to reflect the tax requisitions that we've just presented to you. Okay, so what it does show is the tax impact for each of the 4 service areas. What the average was, the average tax for a residential property owner in Hope and compared to 2020 to 2021, and then you look at the increase for 2021. And then the next set of 3 columns are what the impact would be for residential property owners, I should say, in electoral area A. And then over on the right-hand side is what the average would be for the property owners in electoral area B. Okay.
Okay, and as you know, there is a bit of controversy going on over the assessments that were done here by BC Assessment.
Yes.
That will be continuing as well. Originally, they had us lumped in with Dogwood Valley and all the way up here for the assessments being done, which put ours up higher, and it's still up too high as far as I'm concerned. And I am still concerned about the tax increase in this area. Just to get that out there.
Thank you, Chair Raymond. And I agree with you. The averages went up. The assessments went up quite significantly in electoral area A. And I guess that's, it's a detriment that we had the actual data, but I think it's a benefit that we have eyes wide open. We are aware of what the assessments are coming towards property owners, and BC Assessment's cutoff dates, they do have that opportunity to refine. So hopefully we can make some progress there.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And so with that, I'm going to pass over the presentation to my colleagues in the service area for the service area budgets. And I believe it's Christina who will be doing the presentation this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. So you'll see this lovely slide in front of you, Hope Airpark on a beautiful sunny day. I always like to throw pictures in because it reminds us of where we are. So next slide, please. So the purpose of the Airpark is for the operation maintenance of the Airpark in Hope and the emergency landing strip in Boston Bar. And now for all these budgets, as we've previously discussed, COVID-19 has thrown a wrench into 2020, and we are assuming that 2021 will be similar in terms of COVID impacts. At an Airpark, what that means is fuel usage and or purchases seems to be down. However, that can also change based on different scenarios such as wildfire. Rental revenues are also down because rentals really can't be happening at the moment. So we're seeing some of those things at the same time. Grass still needs to be cut, things need to be maintained, etc. So we've taken the approach of assuming that those COVID implications will be in place for the year, and hopefully not longer than that. Next slide, please. So the big challenge with this budget, again, is COVID implications, but we're also starting to receive, or we have received at least one request for rent relief, and we're anticipating that potentially there could be more. In terms of the reserve funds, which are in place, when we start to look out at our asset management inventory and planning, the reserve funds are not sufficient to meet future needs. So that will be something that will need to be addressed over time.
And who was it that requested for the rent relief?
That was the Soaring Club originally, and that went through in 2020, and we're anticipating the same thing will be coming through for 2021.
So the request hasn't come yet.
No, it has not come yet, correct.
Good.
We are anticipating another request to be coming. And so there are increasing operating costs, which generally happen with inflation, supplies, fuel, those types of things, and taxation must increase to reflect those operating costs. Next slide, please. So you'll see in front of you the reserves and surplus balances at the end of December 2020, which is just under $200,000 in total. Next slide, please. So we have 2021 projects which are being proposed. The flight center floor is in desperate need of repair. The gas shed also is needing to be replaced. There is an old oil tank at the residence, which is also something that needs to come out. The turf tires, unfortunately, on the tractor are at the end of their life and need replacement. And a ruler is needed to prepare the landing strip. So those are the proposed projects which would be funded from reserves for 2021.
If I could ask a question?
Absolutely.
If you prioritize these, which would they be?
The turf tire replacement on the tractor and the roller of the landing strip. I would place those two at the top. It's pretty difficult to cut grass if you don't have functioning tires on the tractor.
Well, I understand that.
And the roller strip is just makes for a much smoother, better experience for everybody.
I understand that as well.
Mhm.
I'm just questioning is if the top three could be put off for now.
Yeah, absolutely, it's possible. Floor center replacement, we could certainly look at patching and or repairs and pushing that back. The gas shed, it's possible that we could look at some repairs, and the oil tank is not going anywhere. It's certainly not leaking. That could be put on hold. So those certainly are options.
Okay, thank you.
Adamson?
Yes, Debs, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The roller, is that, do we have to buy new? Is there, we could buy used ones?
It's possible. It depends what's out there. We would certainly look at options. I know in the past, with a lot of the equipment we have purchased used, particularly tractors and things like that. Sometimes it can be an efficient way to go. So we would certainly look at what the options are.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Commissioner?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair Raymond. What's the budget on this? You said it would exceed our current ability. We don't have the ability to pay for this. What are we at right now? And if we were to remove some of those, where would we be at?
So in terms of the reserves, these items that you see in front of you total approximately $50,000. So we would be taking our reserves down to about $50,000, so $150,000. There are some things that are coming up over the next number of years that we're trying to put together an asset plan / replacement strategy. They are included in the financial plan, but our intention is to have a look at those in closer detail and certainly have a further discussion with the commission in terms of prioritizing and what the life cycling is on these particular items.
So what would the monetary be with just if we do the turf tire replacement and the purchase of a new roller and not the other ones?
The turf tire replacement is $8,000 and the new roller is $13,000. So we're at approximately $20,000. Of these projects, certainly the flight center floor replacement would be the most costly.
Mm-hmm.
And given that we are going into a COVID year, when we first put this budget together, we were hoping it wouldn't be. There will likely be less usage. It's likely something that we certainly could hold off on.
Thank you. I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but I would think that we could look at those last two, the turf tire replacement and the roller for the landing strip, and the other two the other ones put off for a while. Any comments?
Chair Raymond, I think these questions are good. And it just reminds me that Director Adamson's been asking us for a while now to get together and do some long-term planning for the airport. So I'm comfortable with holding off on the top three for now, just working with the bottom two until we have a better long-term plan for the airport and do some strategic planning.
Exactly, a total agreement.
Adamson, I was going to say the same thing.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, carry on.
This time, I have a comment. My concern is if these things really do need to be done, we know we've been here before, that they'll be more expensive next year, more expensive again the following year. So what's to be gained by putting them off at this time?
What can be gained is the saving of some funds here. As I said, if they were be put into a what needs to be done, those top ones don't need to be done right now. And if this year, if COVID miraculously disappears, which we all hope it will, we will probably see more usage of the Airpark, as well as fuel. And maybe a little later on, we can move back into some of those. But as Commissioner Robb and Commissioner Adams has said, we will sit down and have a talk on, let's put a plan together for all of this.
Question, Chair Raymond?
Yes.
Is there, Christina, are there any opportunities for any grant infrastructure upgrades for this? Or is there anything that we could apply for that would take care of some of these things, like permanent infrastructures like the flight center and the shed?
Through the chair to Director Adamo, absolutely. Is there one right now? Not that I'm specifically aware of, but we are constantly on the look for opportunities to see with COVID relief funding or other sources to try to understand the best fit and have projects in line so that they're ready to go, so that we can apply to, we've been successful in the past with certain other areas and projects. And certainly I would hope that there would be a funding stream that could maybe support some of these projects and possibly others for future as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. So again, I would just like to see us work on those bottom two. Even if the grants do come in over this coming year, we can always fit them into that schedule for those other replacements as well. Okay, any other comments? Carry on.
Okay, next slide, please, then, Kelly. So you'll see the financial summary in front of you. Now, keep in mind that this does have the costs in it as it rolls up with those couple of projects. So that would come out of this particular budget. There is some COVID relief funding that is planned to come into this budget as well. The fuel is a big change in terms of expenses and revenues just because of the usage at the Airpark. And some costs are up and other costs are down, and just really trying to conserve funds and make sure that the key things get done. And just looking forward to the future of what needs to be done with this place and for planning. So you'll see that 5-year plan in front of you.
Okay, so could you, I'm not asking you to do it right now, Well, as we get through this, there will be other things that we're asking about as well, so I'll wait till then. I was looking at the savings by leaving those three off and how it would impact that budget, but I'll wait till the end and when we look at it all. Carry on.
Okay. So next slide then, Kelly. So you'll see the taxation in front of you there as it pertains to the Airpark, with the average residential increases based on the assessment as Kelly was discussing earlier. Next slide, please, Kelly. So one of the other considerations which this group has discussed this evening is certainly strategic planning for this particular property, the uses, what does the community want, what are the budget realities, and how are we going to facilitate that moving forward would be a discussion that would be useful for planning into the future. And we're going to be working on aligning this asset management with the requirement of the reserves. So certainly looking at the picture, paint that picture of where we're at and where we need to go. And the fuel pricing and the lease agreement processes are probably due for a refresh and an update. There are sometimes questions coming in about possible leases, and we'd certainly like to be able to offer that customer service and have a more streamlined process there. So that would be one of the other considerations for this particular area.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So that's it for the Airpark. Are there any other questions on the Airpark before we move on?
Only that if I can, only that I would like to see us sit down rather sooner than later to come up with some plans for the Airpark and with the commissioners and with staff.
Certainly, it's noted. I know that Ms. Barker has it in the schedule, and certainly we'll talk about what those options are and bring that forward.
Thank you.
So if there are no
just one quick question, just in terms of the caretaker, everything is fine for 2021 with the we had just renegotiated that agreement last year.
So the caretaker agreement actually expires in March. So we're just about to set it out to procurement to secure another caretaker, or possibly the same one if he's interested, to continue on for, we can do up to a term of 5 years. So we're just in the process of dealing with the procurement and getting that that portion going.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
So
carry on.
If there are more, we could certainly talk about them at another later on in the presentation. Right now we'll go on to 709, which is also known as the Hope and Area Recreation Center. And so fundamentally we're talking about the arena and the pool, in which you'll see some shots in front of you. Next slide, please. Again, the story in 2020 was COVID-19. It took until about June for the province and the professional associations to come up with a methodology by which facilities could sort of return to operations. And then of course there's the staffing component and all the planning that goes into that as well. So it looks very different for each facility. We were fortunate to retain our staff and work on some projects in the facility over the year. In some, clearly the revenues have been reduced. In some areas, expenses have gone up, and other areas, expenses have gone down because of the total change in what we're doing in operating. So it's given us a good opportunity to sit back and look at different plans and trying to streamline some services and things for future planning as we move forward. In this particular area, there are many assets that are due for life cycle replacement, coming up to a time when they're overdue or just coming due. And so while there are healthy reserves and surplus, that will be a discussion moving forward for this facility as well. We also took the time in this past year in the budget cycle to really take a hard look at the account codes to really understand the different maintenance needs for the pool and the arena. And so some of the codes look like we're spending a whole lot more. Some will look like we're spending a whole lot less, but at the end of the day, they balance each other out. It's more of where we're coding them, but it'll give us a lot better data moving forward. And I think it was a particularly helpful exercise. Next slide, please. So, of course, we have a public that is very excited and interested in coming back, and in general. We also have some who don't think we should be open at all, and trying to balance that with the health orders. Overall, though, COVID aside, there certainly is a growing community in hope. Needs for seniors, needs for youth, needs for people with different ability levels, pool, fitness, arena, you name it. We get to chat with many people who give us like program ideas and those sorts of things. So when we talk about projects that are on this next list that you'll see in a minute, those are funded through reserves. We also do look for grants and those types of things as well. But for the bigger foreseeable future, again, it's an asset management strategy and planning for the future for success of the facility. Next slide, please. So you'll see this reserves and surplus balances at the end of 2020, which are healthy. But when you're talking about an HVAC system that costs $85,000, and that's just one system, the bigger picture, those funds can be eaten up quickly over life. So that's why the asset management life cycling is so critical. Moving forward. Go ahead.
Some of these things like investigate the steel columns and repairs needed, hope an area parking lot, tuck point the brick. Aren't these Hope's responsibilities?
That is correct, Director Adamson. So I think that's on an upcoming slide. Maybe,
okay.
Maybe we can move on to the next slide. So these, so if you're okay, we'll talk about first of all the budgeted reserve projects as it pertains to this particular budget, and the next slide will show what the District of Hope, what we've been discussing with the District of Hope, and that would be their financial responsibilities. So you are correct. We'll just get there in a minute if that's okay.
Okay, I thought, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the projects that you see in front of us are proposed for 2021. These are projects for the most part that are life cycling issues that are due for replacement. Things like the janitorial closet creation equipment, storage container. Those ones are more of an efficiency audit to make life easier, certainly for staff and contractors that come in. But the fitness equipment that you'll see in front of us is a result of the fitness review that we've done earlier in the year and the life cycling of that equipment as an example. And so those are the projects on the list for 2021 that we're proposing.
Adamson, question. The question I have is, you're replacing the floor machine. What happens to the old one?
Well, it's pretty much ready for recycling.
Is this the one you walk behind? Correct. It's like it moves by itself?
At times, if it's something that can be repurposed or refurbished, we do look like at an asset disposition. Like, for example, we would do so with our vehicles if it's gone beyond the useful life. This particular item, my understanding from staff is that it's pretty much good to go in recycling because of the repairs and things that happen.
I was just saying, if getting rid of it, I'm sure the ratepayers in Yale would probably like to take a look at it for our facility.
I think anytime we can find a good home for these things, so we'll certainly be aware of that discussion. Any other questions on this one? If not, we'll move on to the next slide. So this is the discussions that we've been having with the District of Hope. Of course, there's a lot of capital projects sort of on the list as well as it pertains. And so we've been discussing with Hope around what's possible for 2021. And you'll see the projects in front of you. The steel column repair is something that came out of 2020 and that's carried forward to 2021. Because at the time when we were looking at doing it, it was going to actually impact people getting back into the pool, and there wasn't enough time to facilitate that. And so we'll be looking to schedule it in an area of downtime or less impact to the community. My understanding is that there's some repairs to the parking lot, including some of the planters and vegetation areas, as well as potholes that the district will be looking at. So that'll be a nice improvement to that parking lot area. And then there's some other life cycling things that the District of Hope is planning to take on for 2021. Are there any questions? If not, we'll move on to the next slide. So you see the financial area summary in front of you. The rentals for the arena, as well as the revenues from aquatics and fitness, are greatly reduced in a projection. It's very difficult to tell depending on how long the facility does stay closed for. The interesting thing is that while we did an analysis of our Christmas use of the pool and fitness center, and we were at about 60% of what we normally are over the Christmas period. So with the pre-scheduled and the COVID situation. So better than actually anticipated in terms of usage. So we're hoping that, we'll follow the orders correctly, but we are making plans to open up as much as we can in a safe manner when it's safe to do so. And then you'll see the expenditure side. So the capital expenditures is a reflection of those particular projects we had talked about on the slide previous. And those are, for the most part, life cycling projects. You'll note that in 2022, on the capital expenditure side, there's a significant capital expenditure plan, and that is a reflection of the heat exchange project that we're starting to plan for in 2021. That would also cover off many of the things on the capital item list as well. And so it'll be a very useful exercise going through that asset management and replacement strategy.
Question, please. Is there a requirement to maintain the surplus at a certain level? A legal requirement? Do we have to have the surplus that is always averaging around $1 million?
I'm going to turn that question over to our finance department.
Hi, thank you for the question. No, there's not right at the moment. We will be developing a policy going forward on the reserve balances. Reserves are for capital, of course, and they're very important for infrastructure. And the surplus balances, I believe there are some intended uses in the future. They're nice to soften tax impacts, but to answer your question directly, there's no requirement.
Thank you.
So if there's no further questions on that, we'll move on to the next slide, please. So you'll see the taxation impacts in front of you in just a little bit of a different format than we talked about when Kelly had talked about earlier on in the presentation, with a $28,000 increase for 2021, and that's softened by some of the COVID funding that we were able to apply. Next slide, please. So the resourcing requirements and accurate costs of reflection and operation maintenance are a focus. And again, working on the asset management program to really understand what is critical, what the needs are, life cycling, what's nice to have so that good decisions can be made moving forward into the future to service the community. And then there's the continuation, of course, of the discussions regarding the DSAT, the Dan Shears Aquatic Center lease as well. Next slide, please. And that's my overview of area 709. Are there any questions before we move on? Okay, so we'll just then move on. Certainly, if there are questions that come up, we can continue to address those. So 710 is our recreation budget. Recreation is a wide range of things, and we're working on further refining this budget as well. But certainly it talks about our outreach programs like our day camps, our child care, club child program, our Canada Day program, anything time we would do a special event like a Valentine's Day skate or a swim with Santa, specialized programs. It could be, you know, registered gymnastics or taught soccer or those types of things. So that would be the types of things that are included in this particular budget. And so in this particular budget, one of the highlights is continuing the recreation programmer position or support certainly for this upcoming year. And I think as was Stacy had mentioned the last meeting, our manager has indicated that she will be on an extended maternity leave. And so some additional support is certainly required in the facility to facilitate all of these programs. Again, with 710 in our recreation area, COVID-19 has a huge impact, and we're taking.
Catch you just before we get too far. Was there any mention about how long that leave extension was going to be for?
I'm going to actually ask Stacy that one.
I think as this is an HR issue, we can speak about it in closed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, and then of course there's COVID-19 impacts. So many of the programs aren't running, but we're trying to work on ways to offer them virtually or in different formats, and planning for different scenarios of reopening and reintegrating that type of stuff back into the facility and into the community. Next slide, please. COVID-19, again, and increasing demand and service levels. We're finding in the community that there's certainly people that are moving in, maybe because of the pipeline, maybe for a variety of reasons, but hope is certainly growing. And people are interested and or have different service levels of expectation and looking for new program offerings. And so trying to work with that to meet the needs of the community is one of the things that we'd like to work on in this particular year. Next slide, please. So you'll see the reserves and the surplus at the end of 2020. Some of this surplus relates to the fact that we got Canada Day grants, for example, and then we didn't have a Canada Day party. And so certainly some better understanding of these surpluses and reserves and future planning in terms of what the community might best like to have these spent on would be a project we would be looking to start to undertake this coming year. Next slide, please. So the proposed projects, again, it's a continuation of the recreation programmer type position to grow those programs and also for COVID-19 support. That would accomplish the review of the recreation program delivery to set us up for future needs. Next slide, please. So you'll see the financial summary in front of you. This is an area where our CFO mentioned that the COVID relief funding is applied for in here, which has actually brought the tax requisition down. Programs are struggling in terms of revenues, but the associated expenses are also reduced as it pertains to that. So hopefully taking a look at those and making sure that moving forward, it's a cost recovery and less impact to the taxation would be a useful exercise. Next slide, please. You'll see the taxation impact just broken down in a different way from what we talked about earlier. And the next slide, please. We're continuing again to review those resource requirements, look at the program costs, come up with efficient new ways of delivering program service and aligning future program opportunities with the demands of the community. So whether that's seniors or youth or teens or adults, there's a wide range of people who are looking for different opportunities. We'd like to continue to work towards a model that meets those needs. Are there any questions?
Question, please. 2 slides ago, back to salaries increasing each year. Is that simply cost of living increases, or is there a reason for the salaries to continue increasing each year over the next 5 years?
There is no new planned salaries in that, but I'm going to turn that over to my colleague.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, there are no new staff members involved here, although we do see, or we will be seeing year over year increases due to union negotiated increases in staffing costs. So it's the majority of it has to do with expected increases as a result of upcoming union negotiations.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other questions on this particular area, we'll move on to the last one. And this is a famous AC pool at Boston Bar, and you'll see that on a beautiful summer day. Next slide, please. So this service area involves the operation and maintenance of the pool and the ball field up in North Bend. COVID-19, in 2020, we had the pool open for 1 month. We are planning for 2021 that's similar to 2020. The difference would be we would plan to have it open for the entire season, an extended season. So hopefully get much more usage up there, again, dependent on health orders, et cetera, but planning for COVID operations, but for the full season. Next slide, please. COVID-19 has created certainly some challenges for us, and that building as well. It's a similar story in terms of, you know, there's life cycling, different things are aging, et cetera. And so taking a look at the assets and creating an asset management plan and looking at strategies to support that is one of the things that we're starting to take a look at. Next slide, please. So you'll see the reserve and surplus balance in front of you at the end of 2020. Next slide, please. So these are 2021 projects funded from appropriate surplus. Now, we have a grant application actually going in for all of these things plus some extra ones because this was an area that actually was identified in a latest grant funding stream that has come up. So we're in the middle of applying for that. So if we are successful in achieving that, we won't even spend this money on these particular items. If we're not successful on it, certainly we would look at it and doing it in the most cost-effective way possible. The exterior stairs, though, to the second story floor are in need of a replacement because there's some significant rot in there and they are unsafe. That building does not have a security system in place, which from a chemical slash just all different types of things for staff security, et cetera, it would be a good thing to have in place overall for the maintenance of that facility. The field is in a state where it should have some repairs done, certainly to have it leveled out and make the surface a little bit more user-friendly. Has been on the list, my understanding, for a number of years. And so we're busy working on some quotations to deal with that, as well as there's a septic tank in that area that creates some sinkholes, et cetera, is my understanding. And we'd like to tie the decommission of that septic tank into that particular area. There are some change room renovations which are coming up, which is, again, aging infrastructure and things that are starting to fall apart. So this would be the start of the change room renovations. In terms of the grant, though, we've forecasted forward and looked at future coming years of capital projects that may be on the list. For example, the siding does need some repair/replacement, and it was a much larger job than what is anticipated. And so we would be looking at placing that on that grant application as well. And there are a few more change room opportunities in future years. And so looking to figure out how we can incorporate that into the grant. So we'll see where we get with that. But this is where we're at for 2021.
So all these placed in the budget now?
Yes, these particular ones are, yes.
So if we get a grant to do them all, then what?
Then that money will not be spent, and it will stay in the reserves. So these particular projects would be funded from reserves. If we get grant funding, the reserves are not drawn from. We use the grant funding and the money stays within the reserves.
Okay, I can understand the stair replacement, but the other three I don't. So the field repair and septic decommission, I would say no to. And the security system, that also is questionable. As you know, all our internet and that is not that great up here. So if you're going to hook it up through that, it could pose a big problem. And the cost of putting it in there might be more than what we're expecting. So I'd like to see some costs on these before I would say, let's go ahead and do them.
I can certainly send a more detailed cost listing or anticipated cost listing for these particular items, if that would be helpful.
Yes, please.
Yep. And certainly we can take anything off of this list. We would like to go ahead, though, and still include it in this grant application, because certainly more money that's coming from a different source to help the facility would be a good thing.
I know, I guess I'm not understanding something here, but if this is already being put into the budget, so that would be an increase in the taxes, and yet we're applying for grant funding for it. So I could see the exterior stair replacement being done, because that's a pretty important part. The other three, I think that we should be sitting back and waiting to see if we can get grants for.
Kelly, can you weigh in, please, on the reserve funding for these particular items and a surplus? Yeah,
certainly. I'm just wondering if Christy, I'm just looking at a different slide on my screen. Christy, do you mind putting up slide 42, please, the financial summary? That'd be really helpful. And I do want to note, Chair Raymond, I wouldn't mind at the end of this presentation going back to the Airpark to talk about a similar point I've been looking into on the long-term plan. So I would just like to point out that a couple of things. Ms. Vagtavina is correct that if we do get grant funding, the monies wouldn't be spent in this coming year, and they would be put or retained within the reserve or surplus, however we had allocated them out. So they'd be still within this service area budget. I think the thing that we really need to consider is what that tax requisition looks like. Earlier in my opening, I talked about the unintended consequences. So we can acknowledge that it's a COVID year and it's a difficult tax situation and cut or defer projects from this year. And perhaps with grant funding, we could safely do that. But then you put them into another year. And so that bumps up the tax requisition. So you see the $67,000 for the 2021 tax requisition. We could decrease it. We could reduce some projects and defer them into later years. However, a couple of risks with that: if you do not get the grant funding, then all of a sudden there's going to be a larger spike in later years taxation.
I'm fully aware of that. We had this discussion before.
Okay, thank you. So Ms. Vagdavine, I don't know where the committee stands on those projects. Should it be a further discussion?
Christy, would you mind going back to that project slide, please?
We can also, Christina, we can list the individual dollar values that we had estimated for each of these projects, if that's useful. We can say that the change room renovations, we were anticipating to keep it as minor as we could at approximately $20,000.
Are these just guessing figures right now, or are they?
These are based on other projects that we've done that are similar, but certainly this has not gone out for a procurement yet. So the costs could be higher or lower. Absolutely, they could be. This is something too that these projects throughout the year, when it's time for us to move forward on them, we would bring them to the attention of the commission as we move forward on individual projects.
A question, if I may, Adamo. With regards to all four of these items, has it been assessed that it is a danger or a possible harm to the public and to our employees? Is this one of the reasons? For example, field repair and septic tank decommission. If you're developing potholes all over the place and people are falling through holes and potentially breaking legs, then that would be a serious risk to our residents. The security system as well, has that been identified as something that's necessary because it's there to protect the public and our employees? So just those questions, please.
Through the chair, if I may. So the exterior stair replacement, it's rotting and falling apart. So it's really not safe to use. So I would say if I had to pick one of these projects to move forward with, that would be the particular one. The security system is something we have lived without. Certainly it would be common to have our facilities secured from a staff security perspective. However, there may or may not be limitations, and the full extent to what that could look like hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. So certainly if the commission didn't want to recommend doing that, that would be something we probably would look at this year in terms of planning out the different options as it pertains to that. The field repair and septic tank decommission, there are some challenges certainly with that field. However, this is what fields do. And we can't plan for every possible pothole. So if the community, for example, is okay with the state of the particular field and not wishing to see improvements there, the septic tank isn't going anywhere, and it's certainly not creating any harm. So that's something that certainly wouldn't be the highest priority. The change room renovations, we could certainly put off as well. It's aging infrastructure. Things are starting to break, but there are certainly things that we can do as small minor repairs to keep it moving along. So it's whatever the wishes are sort of the commission in terms of recommendations moving forward. We can look at options for sure.
I can see the exterior stair replacement. It is in bad need of repairs. and replacement. And I could see the change room renovations taking place. The other two, I am just, I don't think so. I don't know how the commissioners feel. Questions, comments?
Adamson,
Yes.
do we have a security system at our Hope location?
In the building, sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have it on the exterior?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
May I suggest, Chair Raymond, that we take the two items off that you're suggesting for the budget, but continue to add the 4 into the grant application,
Absolutely, I'm be all for that.
okay? And we can move forward from there.
Yep, for sure.
Absolutely. Okay. So on to the next slide then, please. So this is the 5-year financial plan. The lines that would change certainly for 2021. You'll notice at the top the transfer from surplus, $38,000. That would then come down because we wouldn't be drawing those particular funds. And I certainly can send an updated project list with all of those costings for you after this meeting is completed. So that certainly would change, and then it would save money on the surplus down below. And hopefully if we are successful in the grant, then we can, we'll be looking at saving money moving forward in future years as well, which would be a really great thing for the facilities. So next slide, please. And you'll see the increase in taxation, which is 1.25%. At a total of $830. Next slide, please. So with this particular area as well, just understanding and aligning the asset management with future reserve requirements and continuing to review those resource requirements just to make sure that we're maintaining the operation and maintenance of this facility to be able to serve the community. Are there any questions on the Elmer Carlson poll?
So just one question, please, through the chair. And maybe it's directed to Chairman Raymond. With respect to next year or this year, increasing the usage, the length of time that is from 1 month to say 3 months or 4 months, how are we going to cover the cost of the additional staffing, the additional maintenance upkeep? And is there an offset opportunity to generate more revenue from that?
Through the chair. So there are some additional costs that are anticipated with that. In particular, the main would be the staffing component. So assuming we are at a COVID staffing level, we have to have 3 staff members there at all times as opposed to 2. However, a change in operational hours can mitigate some of those costs. The other thing I would say is that in general, we're planning for regular costs as in it would be a normal year. So pool chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. So in 2020, we did save on some of those things because the pool was not operational for that entire time. The other thing is if we're not able to run programs, there aren't program costs, different supply costs, those types of things. So in some ways, the expenses are planned like it's a normal year. In some ways, if it's not, we will save in certain areas. And if it is, there will be expenditures in other areas. At the same time, that's where that COVID relief funding also comes into play to offset some of those expenditure anticipations.
Thank you.
So if there are no other further questions on these budget slides, I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly.
Thank you, Ms. Fugdevine. Chair Raymond and the commission, I wouldn't mind just going back. I would like to do two things, just summarize the changes that I've heard to make sure that we get it correct, because we are preparing the board materials for January 28th. And two is just to point out a slight risk on the 301 budget. So while Christy's going to 301, okay, well, I'll cover off the changes to 711 in one moment. So here, what I heard earlier was to remove the top three projects, which are the flight center floor repair, the gas shed, and the removal of the oil tank. So what I would like to point out is the tax requisition. I guess you can't see my pen pointing to the figures on the screen. The tax requisition. Welcome to Zoom. Hey, the tax requisition amounts. We have large budgets going forward. So there are, when I look in the details of this budget, I do see in future years, we have quite significant, we have capital expenditures of $50,000 in both 2022 and 2025. So taking these three projects off, I believe they're $28,000, and deferring them to a later year. What we would be doing is, and we have to be careful, potentially we could to look at what's in the reserve, the surplus funds. But you know, if you reduce that tax requisition, you see the levels in the later years with all of the projects and initiatives that are required for the Airpark. That tax requisition does have to increase. So I think it warrants the discussion that you as a commission want to have as a whole about the plans for this Airpark. So perhaps there are maintenance items in here, because my point is, if you just defer this, the tax requisition within this 5-year period could really spike. So I think what you need to do is really take a close look at these items that are in the later years, and potentially look at deferring them outside of that 5-year window, because the strategy is to really try and keep that tax requisition stable. And I haven't looked at the historical, but perhaps it's been a little light, because you see that need to get it up to a higher level. So I just wanted to caution that we can take out those three projects for $28,000, but it really will warrant a close look at the strategy for the Airpark and those future years of the financials, please. If there's no questions on that, perhaps I can just verbally summarize what I've heard, that our actions to do are on the Almer Carlson pool is to remove those.
Just prior to that, Kelly, I would have
Yes.
one question, please.
Please.
Is it possible to piggyback on the purchase of supplies for these repairs, that although the repairs can be done at a later time, you can purchase ahead of time what is required to do that? And the reason I ask that is, you know, the cost of lumber, for example, in my industry, I've gone up anywhere from 17 to 38% in the cost of goods in the last 7 months. And so if this is going to be an anticipated increase that takes place over the next 5 years, I completely understand what you're saying. So would we be able to purchase supplies, but not necessarily conduct the labor work right now? Is there a way to piggyback there, add that to other projects that are ongoing, and perhaps gain some type of a cost savings over 2 or 3 projects with the same types of materials being required? Is it worth looking into that kind of a thing?
Thank you, Director Adamo. I think off the top, it's worth exploring. I don't know what other projects are where that purchasing could be occurring. And then you'd have to think about the storage and where they would be stored and actually securely stored to make sure that they're in good condition going forward. So I think it would have to take some craftiness to make sure that we're really coordinating carefully. And perhaps any of my colleagues could jump in of any similar projects where we're doing those procurement.
I think, Kelly,
you.
that maybe Peter's talking about doing an accrual.
Mhm.
Instead of the 28,000, maybe put 10,000 aside into another budget, accrue the funding. I don't know if the regional district can do that.
Possibly, yes. So not to, you're
Not
talking
to-
about,
Not to actually purchase the lumber, but put the funds aside. Earmark it. That doesn't hit your budget there. It'll hit 10,000 would hit somewhere else, but it's still put aside. I don't know if
it would still impact this service area budget if we put it aside for that.
all right.
Adamson?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Peter came up with a good idea there. Maybe we could purchase the roller to fix the field through that grant. Just a thought.
To fix which field?
The one that is at by the pool, the baseball field, it's gotta be leveled. So we buy the roller for that. Or tractor, or whatever, you know what I mean? If we get a grant, that's all. It's good. Peter came up with a good idea. That's all I'm saying. Even a
Okay.
squirrel.
So I guess we have to ask the question of the commissioners on that changing for the service area 301, which is flight center floor replacement, gas shed replacement, and removal of the oil tank at residence. Are we going to have those dropped off, or are we going to leave them on there?
How bad is the floor in the building?
That's a good question.
It's definitely wearing. There are some areas that do require some patching. It's not that I'm aware of. I don't believe it's rotten. So we could probably end up patching it and limping it along for a while. It would be one of those customer service life cycling things at some point, but certainly we could look at options should the commission not wish to move forward at this time.
So it could possibly last with some updates for the 5 years to get us outside that 5-year plan.
We could certainly look at options, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah,
Comment?
Adamson.
Yes.
Could that not be put in the grant? Can you put the Airpark in with the pool grant since we're all one same building? Everything?
I'm going to turn that over to Stacy. She's the lead on that particular grant project.
If I may, Chair Raymond. In terms of the grants, which just we became aware of, I believe it was in mid-December, the provincial government often likes to suddenly inform us of a grant application and give staff a very, very short window of time to actually apply. Yeah. And applying for the grant itself is actually a huge endeavor. The grant stipulations are that a regional district may apply for one grant per electoral area. And therefore, for example, in your area, Director Adamson, as you'll see on the board report, we're recommending asking for funding for the proposed or the Yale Community Park that you're working on. That will be one application.
Yeah.
The Airpark fits in for A. And we are only allowed to move forward on one regional or sub-regional application for the entire regional district. And okay. So that was thought that we would move forward and funding, asking for a grant application for a regional service that applied to all areas.
Okay, thanks.
when you look at the big picture on the budget, this is a small amount. I think we should still move forward with all the items that are planned for the airport, and look at look at 23 or 24 to adjust, but get it done.
I agree.
Any objections from anyone with that?
I think that's probably the right decision to make right now.
We'll leave them in. Thank you.
It's been a good discussion, but thank you. I think we should leave it in.
Yeah, we'll leave that alone. Next.
Chair Raymond, may I just confirm that the 3 projects that the commission would like to remove for the pool, please?
Oh, for the Elmer Carlson pool?
Yes, please.
That's the field, security system, and the septic tank, correct?
Okay, thank you. That's what I had noted down as well, and that totals
Oh, yeah.
$20,000. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, Adamson. Just doing kitchen table money here. You're taking roughly 37,000 of the covert money, and you're adding it to a shared service that we share with Hope. So if the area B or regional districts putting in that, Hope should be putting in 70,000. It's their share. So just putting this in without Hope putting in any money, Hope is benefiting again on the covert thing. It's a double dip. That's what I'm saying.
I guess if I may, that's one of the reasons why I had mentioned earlier that it is being looked at province-wide. Because as it stands right now, those funds that go to the regional district are to be distributed out to regional district projects and operations. And like it or not, the Hope and District Recreation Commission, the Recreation Center is part of that. And that's the way it is, and that's the way it's written up by the provincial government as well in handing out these funds. So while I understand where you're coming from, I also understand that those funds that the regional district get are supposed to be spent in a regional way, and Hope is part of that region.
I appreciate what you're saying, Chair, but Hope also got money for covert. So this is
Totally understand that.
What?
I said I totally understand. However, what we're looking at is municipal and regional. And when the funds come out to be spent regionally, that includes the municipalities. I understand where you're coming from, and that's why it's being called under question across the province right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
A regional service would be like parks, regional parks. So the money could go somewhere like that. But to give it to a service area that only a couple parties are paying into, it's a double dip for Hope. That's all.
I totally understand where you're coming from, Dennis. Like I say, it's being looked at across the province right now as to how fair it was between municipalities and electoral areas. And that's being looked at as we speak. But we can't jump in now and change the rules the way they were laid out by the province. And that's the way they were laid out. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you, Chair Raymond. That does conclude our budget presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, we do have a motion on the floor that the Recreation, Culture, and Airpark Services Commission recommend the draft financial plan be forwarded to the board. Now, this would actually be a draft financial plan as amended, because we did remove those items from budget 711 for the AC pool. So that would be, the motion would just be as amended.
Okay, I didn't see that here, but do I have a mover? Do I have a mover? Anybody?
Adamo, I'll move that with
Thank you.
amendments.
Do I have a seconder?
Rob,
Thank you, Commissioner Rob. Any objections? Director Adamson? That'll be noted.
You're voting in opposition, Director Adamson? Thank you. That'll be noted.
And I'm also voting against the amendment. Director Punch.
Sorry, just to be clear, Director Punt, or
Commissioner Punch, sorry.
yes. So you're voting against the motion on the floor?
The amendment, yes.
So the motion on the floor is that the budget as amended, not an amended
Yeah.
motion, but the budget
Yeah.
as amended.
So-
Okay. So you're voting
So
in
I'm
opposition.
voting against.
Okay, thank you.
So that motion would be carried. Thank you. On to 7.2, operations update.
Thank you again. So the Recreation Center is moving right along. We're definitely settled into the groove of how to operate in a COVID-friendly environment. Currently, we have our fitness center open, which involves the weight room and the cardio center. People can come by appointment, pre-booked appointments, and we need to follow the protocols, etc. But that seems to be working quite well. And as I mentioned previously, over the Christmas holidays, we were at about 60% of what we normally are without any special events and or programs. So it seems to be very well attended. I know in particular, our seniors groups are coming out also as well for not just the fitness center activities, but certainly the pool. We were able to open that the pool up in December, although it had previously been opened up for the swim club. And in terms of the public, we were able to open that up in December. And actually tomorrow we will be moving forward in opening up the leisure pool as well. So that's an exciting move forward in the pool and operations world. On the arena side, it's quiet, and that's mainly because of the COVID restrictions. Minor hockey is practicing. The figure skating club is there as well. And on the pool side, of course, we do have the swim club that's been active and moving right along. So just kind of continuing to work with those groups and their needs. The changing regular health orders make it very challenging in terms of what we can and can't do moving forward. And so I think it's on a daily basis, we're trying to update, understand what's going on there, and communicating that out as best as we can. We've had several instances of potential COVID-19 exposures, but because of the plans that we do have in place and the training we do have in place and our relationships with our user groups, as well as with the health authority and all of those things that govern it, things are moving along. So moving forward, we are trying to plan for different options in terms of more virtual programs, different types of programs, etc. Preparing for a variety of scenarios where COVID-19 lasts as it is, and or restrictions start to be released so that we can offer more services to the community. So that's kind of where we're at from an operations perspective. The staff are doing well. It's challenging when you work at a recreation center and you don't do regular recreation things. But we're working through it. Everybody's upbeat and trying to just plan to keep moving forward, to keeping people healthy.
Excellent. And you pass on my congratulations to them. I mean, they've done a marvelous job through this whole thing. It could not have been an easy task. I would suspect you were getting flack from all sides about when are you opening, how come you're not open? And yeah, kudos to all the employees out there. They've handled this very well.
Thank you.
Adamson,
Yes. go ahead,
are
Ben.
the showers open? That's lots of people ask me that. The showers open.
No, they're not. So it's within the COVID plan. People can shower when they come in to just rinse off in terms of getting into the pool, as would be typical, but we are asking people to shower at home. And the main reason for that is the cleaning protocols, disinfectant protocols that need to be in place as it pertains to that.
I appreciate that. If they had showers at home, they wouldn't be using our facility. And there seems to be, I was amazed how many people out there that use our facility weekly, daily, whatever, they have to have a shower. I was really shocked, but I hope we
Yeah.
did that soon. Thanks.
Absolutely. It certainly is a service that we are not providing right now. And it's been very typical in the past of people coming in for a shower, whether it's, someone who's on a longer journey, like a trucker, or sometimes people who don't have a regular home. So that service we're not able to provide that right now currently. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you very much for the report. On to 7.3. Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream for upgrades to the Elmer Carlson Pool. The motion is that the Recreation, Culture and Airpark Services Commission recommend that the Fraser Valley Regional District Board direct staff to submit a grant application to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Grant COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream for upgrades to the Elmer Carlson Pool.
I'll move staff's recommendation. Rob?
Moved by Commissioner Rob, second by?
I'll second. Fisher?
Commissioner Fisher. Any questions or comments? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Oh, okay.
Staff and standing reports. I think we had a good report from staff. Reports by commissioners. No? Public question period.
So I can advise that we had this advertised through social media and on our website, and we did reach out, made it available for the public to submit questions, and we have not received anything.
None?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you. So I look for a resolution to close the meeting. Moved by Director Adamson, seconded by
Punch.
Commissioner Punch. All in favor? Carried. Let's take about a 5-minute break.
Thank you.